I told everybody that this was like kind of like me throwing out all the bones from in my closet, all the skeletons in my closet, right. Because I've gotten more out of this. Listen to everybody else and everybody else's pain and stuff, or like, I don't know.
Cathartic.
Yeah, totally cathartic. It's been a total catharsis. Yeah. I feel so much better now.
Who is Marc Brown in relationship to you?
Marc Brown was my son.
That's a good question.
Marc Brown to me was a young, dynamic,
genuine, good guy.
He was my best friend when it was convenient for him.
Marc Allen Brown was my son.
He enjoyed going against the grain.
It's hard for me to answer that question.
Individual who loved kids, was trying to find his way in life.
He was my adult child.
I mean, he was a fun seeker, a rule breaker.
He was my boyfriend to me and to his friends when they were at my house.
Very nice and got along with people.
I think he was a very shy person on the inside. He was very introverted on the inside.
You know, he never put himself above us. You know, we considered this place our home.
He was incredibly intelligent. Marc was a savvy, smart individual.
He created like a separate personality for himself of the person who he wanted to be. Not the person who he should be, but the person he wanted to be.
That was it. I mean, he fucked with my head all the time.
Organizing games, making sure I wasn't stealing, fighting, kicking, screaming. And then later on through the years, became a friend.
Like I said, there was two Marcs. There was the real number one Marc, and then the one he created, number two. And if he allowed you to get to know Marc, then you know that wasn't him, and you know this guy existed. And he didn't want you to know the number one Marc existed. The introverted, shy Marc, the one who was self-conscious constantly, and always was wondering what the world was thinking of him.
Who was Marc Brown? Everybody always, all these questions were kind of like, you know, they're goofy for people. They were goofy for people, and, you know, a lot of people said different things and went back and forth. Marc Brown was like any other person, you know. He was my brother. We'll start with that.
In loving memory of Marc Brown, 1970, 71, 2001. Great friend, son, and brother.
What is this place?
This is a place where he started working when he was young. This is the last place he worked when he died. There's a lot of memories here.
We had a teen program, honestly, because Marc was there and had developed the trust and the relationship and knew how to have fun and was edgy enough so that they didn't, you know, that he was still relevant in terms of young people and what they like to do, but he still knew how to walk the line so that he wasn't pushing too many rules and regs, you know.
Marc as a rec leader was getting paid to be a kid that he wanted to be all the time. So, I mean, Marc as a rec leader was Marc just being a kid with the boys. So.
Did he do a good job of being a kid?
Being a kid? Did Marc do a good job of being a kid? Well, fuck yeah. I mean, Marc is a kid, so was.
I don't know who the guy was, but Eric read a thing about where he taped somebody up in a chair in the gymnasium where the basketball courts were and wouldn't let him go.
Well, my dad came to pick me up one day on a Saturday afternoon. He was looking for me, and where did he find me? He found me in this gym by myself with church music or Christian music or whatever it was blaring, duct taped to a chair about 3 feet behind me. And he walked in, he said, you know, everything okay? Yeah, great, tell him I was here, and he left. You know, I don't think that would go on now just because parents don't have that trust. But it was basically, he knew it was a joke, I knew it was a joke. Was I freaking out? No. You know, was it a pain? Yes.
I think he was sort of like a mentor to some of the kids, because I think some of the kids looked up to him. I know he was real mischievous. I know he was ornerier than heck, but I think there was a lot of kids that looked up to him too.
They knew that even though Marc was there to be a leader and a guider and a mentor, that they always knew that he had room to have humor and to have play, and he knew that there was a special place for play and having fun and you know, just kind of letting loose, and that was all part of growing up and being a teen, and he understood that and enjoyed that and probably encouraged that with the kids.
Mountain View Park would have been Mountain View Park without Marc Brown. If Marc Brown wasn't at Mountain View Park, it still would have been, and Marc seemed to think it wouldn't have been. But Mountain View Park still would have been Mountain View Park. Would have had a huge loss? Yeah. Would the kids have had a huge loss? Yes. You look at those kids and what they grew up with, and I just think every day that, God, what a freaking great life.
We show them that you gotta have fun sometimes. And sometimes to have fun, you have to bend the rules, maybe even break them. And that's what he brought to Mountain View. And I think in his legacy, I think the city of Scottsdale remembers too much about the ultimate decision at the end and not enough about, you know, what occurred there in the 10 years prior to.
They remember breaking the rules to have fun. They remember laughing. He just, when he wanted to be himself, he would be himself. And those kids saw it. And I don't know if those kids will ever be able to pinpoint when it was. I did. I watched it. And I think that's what made me so angry, too. I let all those things, because I wish Marc would have been just Marc. But just Marc was too hard to be because there were too many things, unknowns that he had to deal with. So Mountain View Park is what it is to those kids because of Marc.
I mean, even the shit that I didn't respect about him was amazing. Like, how can you have all those stories? How can you be such a massive manipulator of women, and how did you do that? Like that, it was, you gotta kind of stand in awe of his bullshit, you know what I mean? I didn't like that about him, but you also stood in awe of it, like, God damn, I can't, like, how do you do that?
He knew I was retarded about him, and boy, did he have me strung. Like, I was tightly wound up. But he loved it. I know he did.
He just had a way of, he knew the exact time, because Chrissy Demas was like that type of person that would show up. If she said she was going to be there at 9:59, she was there at 9:59. And I think we could get Nicole out the door by 9:57. And even if they passed each other on the road, it still didn't matter, because he could work his way around that. It was fun it was almost like being in a soap opera with him. I mean, 1 minute he was telling one thing to one girl, and the next minute he's telling another to another, and I'm like, how do you keep this shit straight? Because I can't do that. I'm a fairly intelligent man. You know, I think that I'm an educated man, but he used to tell and spin lies to both of them, and it's like, and he never wrote anything down. So I'm like, how the heck do you remember all this stuff?
I don't know. I don't know why he was what he was to me and all those different facets. It was just, I let it happen.
There was, what's her name? Christy, that was Dom's friend. There was the waitress, that native New Yorker, who I'm drawing a blank on her name, Heather. Was it Deanna? I think her name was Christy. Christina, her name was Christina. Mrs. Garrison, although no one else really knows much about that. There were so many others. I mean, I wish I could sit here and tell you I knew all of them.
But he was larger than life, and it was physically, it was vocally, it was personality-wise. He had incredible charisma, and he was able to charm people with all of that put together.
Marc and I related really well to the fact that we were both insecure people about something, and Marc's personality superseded what he was dealing with.
I always hated that about him, is that I never could get to know Marc for who he was, because he was always hiding like the #1 Marc. And that's where, you know, he always told all of his lies to get himself away from that